Good afternoon. And welcome to the State of the Fiscal Office. This is the third time that we've gotten together. Many of you will remember last year we went through our first year's accomplishments and talked about things as we go forward. And what I shared last year, and what I'll share again, is that in terms of the Fiscal Office, many of you work in other parts of the building. Some of you work in other buildings, in fact. So you don't know what goes on throughout the office. And so the intent of today's program is to bring you up to speed in everything that's happening, answer questions you might have, and share some of the activities of the last year. I'd like to start off with our mission statement, and even though it's up there and I know you can read it, let me share this. It's to unite the diverse financial functions of a governmental entity, including property tax assessment, tax collection, budgeting, general accounting, cash management, consumer services, and purchasing into one enterprise that will serve as a model for all other counties while realizing efficiencies gained from the consolidation and providing superior customer service. We're going to talk about superior customer service later, but one of the reasons I like to share that mission statement is that I don't think sometimes we realize how broad the span of responsibilities are in the fiscal office. If you think in terms of fiscal offices throughout the state of Ohio, whether they be county or municipal, we have the broadest span of responsibilities of any fiscal office in the state. Some municipalities, like Cleveland, our peers down the street, they have some utilities and some income tax collection. But no one has the tax collection, the distribution, the real estate assessment, the real estate tax collection, the property valuation appeal, dog licenses, cigarette licenses, just to name a few things that we do. So our span is huge, and that's why I think it's important that you see the mission statement and hear it again. And what I have now is our current, what I'd call table of organization of our leadership team. And we have some new names on the leadership team that were not there a year ago, or just about a year ago. Shelley Davis in the Board of Revision, and Dan Harbaugh, who's the Assistant Administrator. Cynthia Sitch is the Director of Consumer Affairs. Financial Services, Amy Boffman. Treasury, Mark Parks is there. He was there once before, then he was in Special Projects, and now he is the county's treasurer. And then Kathy Gefford, who's the Director of Special Projects. Those are names that were not there before, and I think it's important to point that out because those are 6 new members of the leadership team. 3 of those names that I shared worked for the county. So they elevated from other positions. 3 of the names came from outside the county. So you can see we're building our organization, whether it be the leadership or people that we hire, from talent within the organization, plus identifying talent outside the organization. A good example would be Cynthia Sitch, joined us from Summit County, where she put together and started the consumer affairs function there, and she's coming here now to help us get ours in place. These are the 3 primary goals that we've had almost since I got here. First is to develop a world-class organization that other counties are going to want to aspire to and emulate. Reduce tax delinquencies and increase the county's credit rating to a AAA. And as part of this update, I want to share with you how we've done in response to all of those goals. And I'll be the first to admit we've made some progress, but we've by no means achieved all those goals. I'm not here to say mission accomplished, this is great, pat us on the back, but we are moving forward. This is our head count. We went through this last year, and many of you remember last year was about the time that we'd gone through our staff reorganization and downsizing. We had lost a lot of staff. We talked about that. Many of the people that you knew for a long time, and I said, we're about through that, and we are. You can see our current staff number is 356. The right number for the fiscal office is about 360 to 365. The reason I say 360 to 365, many of the managers have jobs posted right now that they haven't filled. We're waiting to get those filled, and we're down a few positions in a couple areas. And we've actually grown in a couple areas like the Board of Revision where we've had higher demand. But to put that in a frame of reference, in 2008, if you took all of these functions, we were at the high water mark, 633 employees. And if you look at where we will be when I think we're properly sized at 365, that's 42% less employees than we had in 2008. 42% less employees. So we had a lot more employees around here previously that for one reason or another, they were here, but they just weren't needed to effectively run the office. Again, as I said last year, that's not to say they're bad people, but we just had more people than we needed. We've been able to take advantage of consolidation, of technology, and efficiencies. But now I'd like to talk about a couple of our accomplishments. First off, we completed the first ever employee satisfaction survey. And I know, because I received some notes in my office, some anonymously, that they didn't think we would ever tally these up, let alone share them with anyone. I've shared them with all the managers. And I'm going to share some of the results today because I think one of the things that's important when you do a survey is to be willing to acknowledge the results of that survey. Many people like to do a survey and say, wow, so many people love me, they think I'm wonderful. The problem with our survey is we've got some things that we need to work on. We've got some employees that aren't happy about a lot of things. And so I'm going to share those results and talk about my perception of why we got those results and what we can do to try to make it better. But I want you to know I read through all the surveys. I've looked at them more than once, and I'm trying to figure out how can I address some of the concerns in there. Our property tax refund. We refunded $5.25 million to the schools in the county, the municipalities and other entities like the libraries, the park district. And credit there goes to, is anybody here from the real estate division that did the reappraisal, the 600 reappraisal by show of hands? There were some in the last group. Long story, real short, in the past when the county did its sexennial reappraisal, it cost about $20 million. Last year they got it done on time, they did it well, and it cost about $10 million. We refunded over $5 million back to the communities, back to the school districts, and you might say, well, what about the other $4.75 million, Wade? We're going to make upgrades in our technology, and if you work with any of the systems that impact property valuation, tax assessment, or collection, I think it's simple enough to say they're not very good. So we're gonna improve those systems through investment. Manufactured homes is now part of the real property division, which is something that made sense, and we just thought we should do it. Almost all county employees are receiving their payroll by direct deposit. We have just a few that aren't. The Office of Budget Management received the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and that's really important. They've won the award in the past, but that's really important because they won it for the 2-year budget. If you remember, we did a biennial budget for 2012, 2013. We are the only county in Ohio to do a true 2-year budget, so clearly we're the only county in Ohio to win the award for our 2-year presentation, and that's for excellence in the budget presentation. The Board of Revision, do we have some Board of Revision staff here? By show of hands, oh, do we? We have a fair number, excellent. They should be recognized because they reorganized and updated all of their processes. They scan information as it comes in now. They've eliminated the backlog, and we had a backlog of Board of Tax Appeal complaints, not the state of Ohio, on top of our backlog here in Cuyahoga County. And they've addressed that and they're working on it. So many of the challenges that we had last year have been addressed. We still have some improvement to do, but we're in a lot better shape than we were before. Anybody from financial reporting? Anybody from financial reporting here? Yeah, George. We've released our 2009-2010 audit, and people go, well, wait a minute, Wade. This is 2013, and that's an accomplishment, getting the 2010 audit out? Yeah, it is, because we were 4 years behind because we couldn't get audits issued, and we had the corruption hanging over our heads the last couple years. Here's the really good news. The 2011 draft financial statements are done now. We hope to get that audit released within a month, and that means that we'll be current, and then we can get the 2012 audit hopefully released soon thereafter. So in the span of about a year and a half, we'll have caught up those audits, and that's due to the hard work and effort down in the first floor. Okay, I mentioned the Treasury Department, or the Treasurer's Office, has changed its website. It's got important dates on there, and it's also got the language translator. So if you go on to the Treasurer's website, and English is not your native language, or you don't speak English, you can have the information for your property taxes converted to about 50 or 60 different languages. And that was put in place, I think last year, but it's fully functioning. We get compliments on it quite a bit. And then lastly, one of the other accomplishments, even though it seems minor, retention schedules for all the different departments in the fiscal office. Bill Lavin and his group have made it their mission to go around and find out what records we have, which ones we need, which ones we don't need, what can we get rid of. But before you can get rid of them, you've got to have a retention schedule. You've got to get it approved, and every department's retention schedule is different because of the records you keep. And so that's all been updated, and it's in place, and so it doesn't sound real glamorous, but it's one of those things that needed to be done. The Employee Satisfaction Survey. Let's start with the first one. Are you satisfied with your employer? 51% said they're not satisfied or only slightly satisfied. So when over half the employees that work in the area that I'm responsible for, over half, so they're not satisfied, it got my attention. Why they weren't satisfied, I don't know. And one of the things I shared with the first group is we're going to maybe do another survey, or at least sit down and talk with some employees, because I need to know more. Because when I went to the next question, it says, how challenging is your job? 46% of the respondents found their job very challenging. Now, wait a minute, is that good, very challenging? Or is it bad, very challenging because I don't have the tools and I don't have the support that I need to do my job? Or is it good because it's very challenging and I like it? Because when you're not satisfied or slightly satisfied and you're very challenged, those two things concerned me. But then I went to the next chart and said, okay, well, see if I can get any more information. 48% of our employees felt extreme stress or very often felt stress. So I said, okay, they're stressed, they're challenged, and they're not happy. That doesn't sound too good. There's something going on that we need to dig a little bit deeper on to find out why that is. And so Kathy Gefford is the new Director of Special Projects. I've tasked her with helping me try to dig down further. And is it particular areas? Is it tasks? I do know that the survey was done after many of you got your job reclassification notices. And there were pay adjustments. And some of you were probably affected by that. I know that that upset people. It was done, and this is not to implicate HR, through the Human Resource Department with the help of Archer, who was our outside consultant. They determined what classifications should be given to every employee and what their pay should be. But when you look at the next question, how well are you paid for the work that you do? Does it surprise anyone that 0% of the respondents said they are paid extremely well? That's, you guys can laugh. Everybody's serious here. The last group wasn't as serious. I said, okay, 0%, but 48% said they were not paid well at all. And I shared this with the last group. I want you to know, and I know the managers know this, there are times when I will make a request for an equity adjustment for someone because of the job they're doing. All I can do is make the request. Many times the manager makes the request of me, I push it forward. Often it's denied. I want you to know we make those requests. We know people are doing tasks. We know that people are doing the same task as someone else and paid at a lower level. And we're working hard as we can to try to get everyone right. The problem is we had an outside consultant come in and look at what everyone did, looked at the CPQs and said, this is their job classification, this is what the pay level should be. And so we're trying to work through that. The one thing that did give me some comfort, it says, how much do your opinions matter to your supervisor? And 35%, or more than 1/3, said their opinions matter a lot. So at least the supervisors are listening, but I want you to know that I heard you in the surveys. There are people that are unhappy. There are challenges. People feel stress. And so I've asked the management team to help me try to drill down further on that and figure out what we can do to make it a little bit better. I don't want to lead you to believe I can solve every problem. I can't make all the stress go away. I can't make all the pay inequities go away. But I can try to make it better. If here's where we are today, let's try to get to here. And we're going to talk about some things we're going to try to do to make it better in a little bit here. Now we're going to talk about moving toward quality. And all of you know that when I first started, I talked about how data-driven I am as an accountant. Everything's about the data. How many transactions? What's our investment return? How many people? Well, one of the things that we've been talking about, and I've been talking about with the managers, is how do we improve the quality of the services that we provide? And here are some things that are going to happen in the next year. Fuel quality testing. Right now, Weights and Measures goes to every gas pump in the county, and we make sure that you're getting a gallon of gas when you buy a gallon of gas and pay for it. What we don't do is if you're buying 87, is it really 87? Now, we don't have any legal authority to enforce that, but we can sure as heck, since we have a Consumer Affairs Department now, if we find certain gas stations are selling 85% at 87% price, let everybody know and try to hold them accountable. And so we're going to start testing the quality of fuel. You might have seen some information on the Veterans ID program. That got a little bit ahead of itself. In about a month, what we're going to do is when a veteran comes in with their DD-214, their discharge papers, and I asked in the last group, do we have anyone here that's a former veteran that served? By show of hands. In the last group, we had a number that had served. What we want to do is many veterans need the ID to access services at the VA, at the Veterans Services Commission. There are other benefits that come with having a veteran's ID. We have a large veterans population in our county, and we especially have a large veterans population that's homeless. And so one of the things we want to try to do is help them with this documentation or living wills. And so the plan is, as soon as we're up and functioning on a Saturday, open up the building to just veterans and the staff that will work in that area so the veterans can come in, get their IDs, they can talk to the VA, they can talk to Veteran Services and other groups that might be able to provide them services. Again, we have a large veterans population. I think it's one of the few things that we can do. There are other areas that can help, but in terms of the fiscal office, it's one of the few things we can do. Give them an ID, safely record their documents so we have them into the future if they ever need them. The call center. Many of you have seen the horseshoe down on the second floor. You heard us talk about the call center. It's almost there. Within the next week or so, it'll be up and running. You'll see people sitting in those chairs, and one by one, you'll start to see departments' calls transferred down there. And the goal is in the long run that every call coming into the fiscal office will go through the call center, so that many times you don't have to field unnecessary calls. They can be answered and handled right by the people there, or they can be sent to the right department. And so the hope is that we create efficiencies. We'll be able to, and the other good thing is we'll be able to track every call. We'll know how many calls are going into the treasurer's area. We'll know how many calls are going into the board of revision. We'll know how many calls are going to the map room. And we'll be able to adjust staffing. Because if we find one area is getting overwhelmed with phone calls for some reason, and another area doesn't get a lot of demand for services from the public, the idea is that we can hopefully shift staff to address those needs. The microfilming center. We've developed a marketing program, but more importantly, we're expanding that. And this might sound a little odd because you've heard me talk about efficiencies and trying to reduce staff. This is one of those areas where we're going to increase staff. We're hiring 14 new scanners. We have a supervisor in that area, and here's how it came about. The clerk of courts had boxes and boxes and boxes of records that they needed to scan and record and keep. They were going to outsource that. They were going to pay between $1 million and $2 million to a company to scan all the documents. And a variety of people were involved. No, don't give me the credit per se, but those people that said, you know what, wait, hey, how about this? We already scan documents. We already microfilm for a bunch of entities. If we buy equipment and we hire 14 people at what they're normally paid, our budget's less than $700,000. Didn't take me long. I mean, I'm a pretty good accountant. I know that $600,000 or $700,000 is a lot better than $1 million or $2 million. So I made a request of the executive, let us hire the staff, train them, and let us do that work. And what that's led us to is that we're going to do that work cheaper, and we're going to start providing these services to other counties around us, municipalities within our county, and other groups. And we even have some state agencies that have reached out to us. And so this could become a revenue source for the county, in addition to providing services cheaper to other groups within the county and the area. And so compliments go to Bill Lavin and the group that's involved with microfilming, because they are being very, very proactive about that. OnBase is our new purchasing system, and long story short, that's being delayed a bit. Any of you that work with Novus know that it's not the easiest thing to work with. OnBase will make it a lot easier. We'd like to get to paperless purchasing, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get there, but that's being pushed back. But I want you to know that that initiative's coming. We want to make purchasing better. The Treasurer's Office is expanding its automated payment options. And one of our goals is to reduce tax delinquency. And so I looked up and I go, hey, we're making great progress. Then I looked at it again and I go, wait a minute, we slipped about 1%. But those are the real numbers. But the important thing is 18.63% in May of 2013, which is where we are now, which is a little bit higher than it was a year ago, is still much lower than it was 2 years ago. But again, I don't want to just show you the good facts. You can see we slipped a little bit just in that month. The hope is that when we look at June and July, it comes down. But we're still battling delinquent taxes. We have over $400 million in delinquent taxes in this county, and it's an issue we've got to address. So it's going to stay one of our goals. The Treasurer's Office is working hard to get that number down. Anybody have to work with our real property system, any of our property tax appraisal collection systems, by show of hands? Now, if you think we've got a great system, keep your hand up. Okay. The RFPs for our new real property system are back, and in the next few years, we're going to have a new real property system. Part of the $4 million that we held back from the refunds, along with other dollars, are going to be put out so that many of you that are working in the Treasurer's Office, working in the Auditor's Office, working in the Board of Revision, working in appraisal will say, wow, this is good because the systems are going to be integrated. We're not going to have to enter information 2 and 3 times. It's just going to be a much better system. Most of the fiscal office now has new computers. Their computers have been updated. They have brand new ones. All of you have pretty new computers recently?
Yep.
Okay, great. That was an effort that we'd been going through for a while, trying to get new computers out. And then one of the last quality initiatives is GroupWise, and that's going to be replaced by Microsoft Outlook. And Microsoft Outlook, from what I'm told, many of you can't wait to get Microsoft Outlook because GroupWise is just not the most friendly email system. And that should happen, according to Jeff Maurer, the IT director, in the next 90 days. They'll transition people over. I've got it on our quality initiatives, but that's really a quality initiative of the IT department. And I should have mentioned, I said this in the first group, if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to ask, and we'll have time for questions at the end too. one of the last things I show is this is a complete list of the projects we're working on. And this is important because many times I think if you're in other parts of the county, you go, wow, how does all this happen? And so what I've got before you is just a list of the projects. There's 53 different projects or tasks that we're working on the fiscal office right now. For example, if you go to number 4, it says implement customer service training with help of HR. So by the end of July, they want to have us go around and do customer service training throughout the fiscal office. Well, what HR didn't understand was the type of customer service training we do in the map room is different than we do down in delinquent tax when you're trying to help somebody with a payment plan. So to just say, hey, here's the customer service training, get everybody in the room and do it, didn't work. I said, you're going to have to look at all the functions of the office and help them understand how to do better customer service. But I always stop there and I want to let you know that I get compliments all of the time when I'm out speaking about specific employees or about the office in general. Someone will say, you know what, I was in your office and I had to do this, and they'll tell me a name or they'll say, I don't remember the name, but they were really great. I get letters, and I try to, hopefully your supervisors share those with you. I share them with the supervisors. When someone's done an exceptional job, a taxpayer will take the time to write me a letter and thank me for something that one of the employees did, when really it's the employee that did it. But we do want to see if there are ways we can improve customer service a little bit. You'll see number 11 is GIS pictometry. We're going to have that in place. That falls, if you look at the staff lead there is Eric Richter. It says the project's ongoing. So I use this on a daily basis with these staff leads to see where are we at in these particular projects. If you look at 24 and 25, it's the 2011 audit and the 2012 audit. It's Amy Boffman. It says by June 30 to have the 11 audit done. And so I talk with Amy. I talk with George Kronik, her assistant, about how we're doing on that project. And again, it's one of the things that I look at every day. If you go to the next page, these are the other tasks we're working on. If you go to 43, it doesn't sound real glamorous. TIF bond program, tax increment financing. But it's critically important to the county. The East Bank of the Flats are going to get redeveloped through a TIF. And so the lead on that is Matt Rubino, the director of the Office of Budget and Management, and it said 3/31/2013. He did meet that. What he did is he started developing consistent guidelines. So when developers come in and want to access TIF revenues, what are the rules of the game? And one of the things that I know the executive hears from time to time is the fiscal office is pretty hard to work with. And I said, well, what does that mean we're pretty hard to work with? Well, we're pretty hard to work with because I think in the past they were used to setting the guidelines of the program, or if there are revenues that are going to come from the TIF financing program, we don't give them 100% of the revenue, we give them 95%. We say we're keeping 5% for us, that's our security. Or we make the terms a little bit more favorable to the county and a little bit less favorable to the private sector. And someone asked me, they said, well, why are you doing that? And I said, because I guess I feel my job as the fiscal officer is to protect the county and to protect the taxpayers. It's to help business, help create jobs, help drive the economy, but at the end of the day, I always view myself as kind of the protector. I'm supposed to be the one who protects the taxpayer, protects the fiscal office, protects the county. And so the developers and others that we've worked with, and I know that others here, Joe Machula and others, we make them answer to us now. When they get TIF revenues, when they get benefits from the county, we at least want you to play by the rules. Share with us what you're doing. If you look at number 50, it's finalize the credit card inventory. That falls into Lenora Lockett in purchasing. Here's what we had going on in the county here. We had credit cards all over the place for reasons I don't know. How people got them, I don't know. So we gave people a heads up. Lenora told them, hey, guess what? In March, we're shutting off every credit card in Cuyahoga County. If you have a reason we shouldn't shut your credit card off, contact us. Well, we did have a few. The Sheriff's Department have some undercover sheriff's deputies and others that they have a reason that, hey, that's a legitimate reason you might need a credit card and you don't want to tell Wade Steen about everything you're doing, but you just need this card to do your job. But we had lots of people that had credit cards for no good reason. So we've shut all those off. We're trying to bring control around that. Again, it's one of those tasks. It's not real glamorous. It's not real interesting, but it does make us better. Lenora did a nice job of cleaning that up. And again, you can see the list. We'll make these slides available to everyone. If you want to see the tasks, we add tasks to the list. We take them off. But at any given time, there's more than 50 things going on in the fiscal office that the managers and others are trying to get accomplished to make the office run a little bit better. This is the Western Reserve Plan. And I shared this because last year we talked about the Western Reserve Plan. It's the 12 key areas highlighted by the executive, and we try to tie everything we do into the Western Reserve Plan. And then lastly, I did want to announce that the Fiscal Office Cookout will be June 21st, which is a Friday. That's the first day of summer. And we're going to have a cookout right here in the building. And we would just ask you all to come to lunch, provided by me, by the Fiscal Officer, and the other managers. Meet others from the Fiscal Office that you might not know. And the other thing that we would like to do is we want to make this a dress-down day. And so let's have this discussion again. We had it last time. I want to use this first day of summer as a chance to reinstitute what I would call the Casual Friday or the Dress Down Friday. But I'm asking you this time, please help me we need everyone to follow the Dress Down guidelines, because I don't want to have to wear a tie all summer. I mean, we have wonderful green space outside. The lake is beautiful. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to walk around on Friday in casual attire or in business casual attire? So please help us out. We're going to try to institute it again, and if it goes well on the first day of summer, which is June 21st at our cookout, then we'll carry it on every other Friday through the rest of summer. So I'm asking everyone to help, but I do need to share a question that came up at the last session, because they asked about it. I said, well, we had some situations where people wouldn't comply. And the person who asked the question was actually correct, and I maybe was not correct in this. We decided to not have dress-down days. Her request was, hey, I follow the rules. Most of us follow the rules. Why don't you? If someone doesn't want to follow the rules, send them home. That's what the guidelines say. And I told her, I said, you know what? I need to think about that. You're right. Because what we ended up with was no dress-down days for everyone when we had just a few that didn't want to comply with the guidelines. And so I'm sharing that also. Please understand the guidelines. If you choose to dress down and for some reason don't follow the guidelines, you're probably going to have to go home. So we want it to be fun. I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm being heavy-handed. We want to have a fun time at the cookout. We want you to meet other people within the fiscal office. I want to try to find out some of the reasons that the employees in the fiscal office are feeling stress, some of the reasons and the people in the fiscal office aren't as happy as they could be, because you spend a lot of time here. I want you to enjoy your time. And so I'm going to use this as my first chance to kind of interact with all of you. I'll be helping cook the food. Jennifer and Kathy are going to help organize this along with the managers. We don't know if it's going to be downstairs or on what side of the building because of construction, but you'll be getting emails either from Bonnie or Jennifer or Kathy about where the food's going to be. Come hungry and hopefully enjoy that day with us, and we'll try to start down the path of making things a little bit better. And with that, I want to see if there are any questions now about anything I said or anything else. I'm more than happy to try to answer any question you have. And we need to take...
That other one, please.
Okay. And if you have a question, that you got to use the mic because they're going to tape you. So don't be bashful, but does anybody have a question? Come on, is the mic scared?
Challenging enough for you?
Go ahead, Joe.
Is this job challenging enough for you?
Is the job challenging enough for me? It's yes. It's challenging enough for me. I've got to tell you, I love every minute of the job. I really do. And I told the last group, I love working with all of you. It doesn't mean that every day is perfect. And when I saw the results of the surveys, I have to tell you, I was a little discouraged about how unhappy some of the employees were. And I know some of the reasons, but that doesn't mean that you just walk away from it. It means you try to figure out a way to fix it. I mean, I can't control payroll. I can't control those inequities at times and some of those things. That's an issue that's outside my control. But there are some things that I can control that I want to try to make better. And I do believe as a county, I believe as a fiscal officer, we're definitely doing better. I think we're providing really, really good service to the taxpayers. Our next real test, and someone asked in the last meeting, move date. We're still online to move next July or August, summer of 2014. That's going to test all of our abilities because we're going to have to, and this is the thing that I shared with the other managers in the county executive. The fiscal office is the office that interacts with the taxpayers. 95% of the taxpayers in this county, when they think of county government, they're coming to us. I mean, moving HR is pretty easy. Jeff Maury's got to move all the IT lines, but they're kind of remote. Public Works isn't in this building, so that's not a big deal. I mean, it's us trying to move everything so when someone has to pay their taxes, wants to come record a document, purchases a home, they're going to come down and they don't care that we're moving from this building to a new building on East 9th. They want to know that you're there and ready to serve them. So that, to me, is going to be our biggest challenge in the next year, is how well we do that. But, Joe, I'm finding it pretty challenging. I'm enjoying it. Any questions? And you won't have to use the mic. Come on, no questions at all? Yes, go ahead.
Parking. When we go to a new building, will we be able to have parking like we have across the street? Or will it be about the same price or anything like that, you have any information?
Here's what I do now, and I'm gonna ask this question because again, last group, it's surprising, a lot of the questions are the same. They wanna know if they're parking across the street, did they get priority in the new parking lot? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the price is going to be. I know the executive says he's gonna try to keep it down. I do know that Councilwoman Conwell, Yvonne Conwell, has raised that question. She's concerned there's not gonna be enough parking. She's also concerned about the price of the parking. I have a few concerns because that's a tight space. Is there gonna be enough space for everyone to park? Valid concern that you have. I wish I knew the direct answer. I do know the architects who design buildings for a living say this is how many people you're gonna have, this is how many parking spaces you're gonna need, and so they tell us we have enough. My bigger concern is I wanna make sure that walkway stays up, because I don't wanna have to walk through the slush anymore in January if I can walk across the walkway and stay out of that mess. So hopefully they keep the walkway. And right now the walkway's in the plans. Yeah, go right ahead.
How about the scanners? You said you have 14 new scanners?
Yes.
To do other projects? My question is that, it's like, you think the contracts are gonna be able to keep them, going for a good while? Because we
Yeah,
already have scanners across the street, we have scanners over there on 12th, and I know we've been doing scanning for, what, about 70, maybe 10 years now? A good 8 years maybe?
The-
So we've been doing a lot of scanning.
The question was, with hiring the 14 new scanners, can we keep them busy?
Yeah.
The clerk of courts project alone, we estimate will take 6 months to 12 months. We're not sure how quickly they can get through it. But the annual cost, so back to that cost, that annual cost is about $650,000, $700,000. They were gonna pay more than $1 million to have it done. So even if we spend the next year just doing that project, we come out $300,000 ahead at least. And one of the challenges that I know Eric Richter and Bill Lavin and others in operations have had is, you've got about a year now to find more business so that it starts to stack up. Here's the good news, and I wish Bill was here because I would make sure he hears this. Bill is finding the business. He's out there, he has other counties, other departments, and even the state of Ohio now that are talking to him, and who knows, he might get to the point where 14 more isn't enough, he needs even more people. And I look at that as a positive because now we've identified something where we need additional people, we make money doing it, and we're serving other governments. But I'm pretty comfortable that I wouldn't have advocated going forward if I didn't think we could make this work long term. I think we can make it work long term. Anybody over here?
Okay, when we move
Yes.
to the new building, are we gonna have other employees get transferred to that building from different, buildings or not?
I'm sorry, are we gonna what now?
Are we gonna have other employees be transferred to the new building? Or it's gonna just be us there?
Now, all of us will be transferred, as well as there'll be some employees that come from other buildings, but not a lot. I think there will be some public works employees that are, the county looked at all the buildings they were in and tried to consolidate them down, and they're bringing them in. And so I think it'll probably be about 80 to 90% of the people that are here now, and about 10 to 20% new people coming in. A couple of things about the new building that people might not realize, and Mark Parks deserves credit for this, and those in the treasurer's office. We're going to have a kiosk downstairs, and I know it was Mark and Eric Richter and others that were involved with the design. And when I say a kiosk, what that means is if you work the night shift and you can't get in here between 8:30 and 4:30 to pay your taxes, you can actually go up to the window, secured area, tax bill in hand, check, and pay your taxes in a secured area and make sure it's paid timely. Board of Revision staff that are here, if you want to make sure your BOR complaint is filed by March 31st, you can make sure you go there. Everything we receive is going to be time-stamped. You can make your child support payment. Any of the other activities you have to do, you can do right there. One of the other things we're going to have is a drive-up window. I know many of you see in January when we're doing tax collection, we've got heaters outside and we've got the little canopies. You won't have to do that anymore because you'll be able to drive right up to the building, and there'll be like one of those like night depositories where you just drop your tax payment in, and it might be 11 o'clock at night. You don't have to worry about coming between 8:30 and 4:30, especially if you work a second shift or a third shift and this is when you sleep. So we're trying to make things easier for taxpayers, so we're going to be hopefully more of a 24/7 shop in the new location. So that will actually reduce some of the need. Any other questions at all? Yes?
Have any of the buildings sold that are for sale?
Any of the buildings sold? Trying to think if we have sold any buildings. That is a good question. I haven't seen the check if they've sold, but I do know that, and you've probably read something in the paper, there's been a lot of interest in this building. Probably this will be the building of highest interest, and this building will sell. I know that they had a for sale sign up, I know they've had numerous groups go through. But back to your question, I think they've received offers in some buildings, I'm just not sure if they've negotiated back and forth. Like I know Courthouse Square is a very attractive building, and they've had, but then we have some buildings in the county inventory that they're gonna have a hard time moving, just because they're not real attractive. But they're in that process right now of consolidating down and trying to bring everybody under less roofs than we're under currently. Well, if there are no other questions, what I want to do is, again, I want to thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, I'm smart enough to realize that when I get compliments for things the fiscal office does, they're really compliments for the work that you all do. It's not because of me. It's not because I'm the fiscal officer. It's because they came in for some reason and you or someone that works in the fiscal office did something for them that made their life a little bit better, helped them through a bad situation. But for that, I want to say thank you, because we do get lots and lots of compliments. I think we're doing great work for the public, and I look forward to seeing all of you on June 21st when we do our cookout and have our first day of summer casual attire Friday. So thank you again for all the work you do.